Hello everyone, Miss Carol here again. Hoping you're having a great week. Hoping school is going well for you, whether you're doing at home or in school. Let's just do a little review before we jump into our continuing lesson of the Israelites on their way to Canaan. All right, so remember we talked about last week how they got right to the border of Canaan, the promised land. Finally, they're there. And God told Moses to select one man from each of the 12 tribes. So 12 men, probably the strongest and bravest, to go and spy out the land of Canaan. And he wanted to know, what kind of land is it? What kind of people live there? What do their cities look like? What's the food there? Bring us back some food. And so, if you remember, they were gone for 40 days while they spied out the land, weren't they? And when they came back, they had done as Moses said, and they brought back with them grapes that were so heavy it took 2 men and a pole to be able to carry them back. And they brought back pomegranates and figs. And everyone, don't you know, was so excited. So they gathered everyone together and for the 12 men to give them a report on what it was like over there in the land. And they all agreed that, wow, it was a beautiful land, right? And tons of food to eat, and it was beautiful. But they said the cities all have walls around them. There are armies. And what else did they say? Giants. There's giants, and we look like grasshoppers, and there's no way that we can take over that land. But Caleb said, oh, don't even think that. Just be quiet, right? Of course we can. Of course we can do it. But because of that bad report, all the people started saying, we can't do it. We just want to go back. We want to go home. We want to go back to Egypt. So we're going to just find us a leader, and we're just going to have him take us back to Egypt. We don't want to go in there. If we go there, we're going to die by the sword, and our wives and children are going to be captives. And Joshua stood up and said, oh, no, don't say that. Don't say that. They don't have any protection there. Their idols can't protect them. God is on our side. God can do anything. God can protect us. But they didn't listen, did they? They grumbled and grumbled and grumbled. And even though Moses and Aaron prayed about it, prayed to God, God said, oh, you know what? If that's really how you feel about it, that you don't trust me enough after all the miracles I've done to think that I could bring you into that promised land, then I don't think you need to go into that promised land. I'm just going to keep you here in the desert wandering. 1 year for each day you were in the promised land spying it out. So 40 days they were in the land spying it. So 40 years you're going to have to wander around in this desert. And anybody that's 20 years or older, I'm going to wait until you're all dead. You've all died in this wilderness. But your children, the ones that you thought were going to be taken off as captives by the Canaanites, now they're going to get to go into that land that I promised to you. They're going to go into that land. Well, the people realized what a mistake they had made, didn't they? So some of them get up the next day, and they've got their swords, and they said, okay, we're sorry. We're going to go up and fight now. We're going to go up the hill country. We're going to start fighting. And Moses said, oh, wait a minute. You can't do that. You cannot do that. God already told you. You can't go in the land. You didn't believe him. You didn't have faith. And so you're not allowed to go up there. If you go up there, I won't be with you, and neither will the presence of God, because we're not taking the ark up there either. And they didn't care. No, we can do it. And they went up there. And in Deuteronomy, there's a place in Deuteronomy where Moses says, and when they went up there, those Canaanites drove them back down the valley like a swarm of bees. Have you ever tried to get away from bees? Imagine a whole swarm of them. That's how Moses said that's how they felt when all those people started fighting them and driving them away, and they just ran back. Yep, because they went against God, didn't they? So now they're going to be spending they were right there, weren't they? They were they were right there at Canaan. They were just right there. But what happens? They didn't believe, did they? Now, he says, turn back and go down toward the Red Sea. Now you're going to just have to spend 40 years wandering around in this desert. Wow. So, I don't know if we believe they're going to be changed or not, but so here's what happens. So those Levites, you remember the Kohathites? That clan, that family of the Levites that carried all the special things from the tabernacle, all the holy things. Well, one of their leaders, Korah, he was a great-grandson of Levi. And he goes, when he gets 250 other men together, and some from different tribes even, and he goes to Moses and Aaron, he says, we want to be priests too. I mean, who made you holy? We're all holy. Why should you get to be priests? Why should you get to do those things? We're just as good as you are. And Moses said, we didn't choose this. God chose us. And he chose you too. So I'm going to read to you a little bit about what Moses said to them, starting in Numbers 16, verses 8 through 10. So Moses said to Korah, now listen, you Levites. Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community? And he brought you near himself to do the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them. He has brought you and all your fellow Levites near him. But now you're trying to get the priesthood too? It is against the Lord that you and your followers have banded together. And who is Aaron that you should grumble against him? So the Lord said, all right, Moses, you tell them to meet back here with their censers, with their incense in it. Tell them to meet back here in front of the tabernacle. And the Lord will choose. The Lord will choose. And so we're starting in verse 26. And it says, so Moses warned the assembly, move back away from the tents of Korah and a man named Dathan and Abiram, who were also leaders there. And Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and he warned the rest of the assembly, get away from them. But don't touch anything that's theirs. So they moved away from the tents. But Korah, Dathan, and Abiram had come out and were standing outside their tents with their wives, their children, their little ones. And Moses said, now this is how all of you are going to know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death like all men do, then God isn't the one that sent me. But if the earth just opens up its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, then you will know that you have treated the Lord with contempt. And that would be terrible, wouldn't it? And as soon as he finished saying this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them with their households and all Korah's men and all their possessions. And after they had fallen into it, the earth closed over them and they died, and they were gone from the community. And the Israelites around them ran, saying, oh no, it's going to swallow us up too. So we know that things haven't improved a whole lot, have they? They're still grumbling. How could they be doing that? They're still thinking, oh, this is all Moses' fault, what happened. So then the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites. Get 12 staffs from them. A staff was like their shepherd's stick then they were shepherds, weren't they? So they all had that staff that they carried with them. And I want one from the leader of each of the 12 tribes, and write the name of each leader on the staff, one for each tribe. But on the staff of the tribe of Levi, I want you to write Aaron's name, for there must be one staff for the head of each tribe, and place them in the tabernacle in front of the ark of the covenant where I meet with you. And the staff belonging to the man that I choose will sprout. And then I will rid myself of this constant grumbling against you by the Israelites. So Moses spoke to the Israelites, and their leaders gave him 12 staffs. Okay, and they had written the names of each tribal leader on there, except for the Levites, whose name was on there. Aaron's name was on there, right? And Moses placed the staffs before the Lord in the tabernacle in front of the ark of the covenant. And the next day Moses entered the tent and went in and saw that Aaron's staff had not only sprouted, but it had formed buds, and it had blossomed, and it had produced almonds. Well, that was a miracle, wasn't it? And that's how he was showing, Aaron is my chosen one. He's the one I chose to be the high priest. So Moses brought out all the staffs from the Lord's presence, and they looked at him, and each one took his own staff. And the Lord said to Moses, put Aaron's staff back in the ark of the covenant to stay there, to be kept as a sign to those that rebel. And maybe this will put an end to their grumbling against me, so they will not die. And Moses did just as the Lord commanded. So let's think about this. Now there are 3 things in that Ark of the Covenant. Do you remember what the first 2 were? The first one was the tablets with the 10 commandments on them, right? The second thing, remember, was the omer of manna to remind them God's giving them bread every day. And then the third thing now is Aaron's rod, his staff that budded. Okay? All right, so those are the 3 things that from now on are going to be in that ark. So now let's move on to Numbers 20, starting with verse 22. And it says there that the whole community set out from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. All right, let's see if we can find all that. Here they are up at Kadesh and where the grapes are. And now they're headed down here to Mount Hor right here. Okay, so they're leaving Canaan, aren't they? Headed downward because they can't go into Canaan, can they? And at Mount Hor, near the border of Edom, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, just a minute. Let's go back a little bit. So, when they arrived, there was no water for the community. And the people gathered and opposed Moses and Aaron. And they quarreled with Moses and they said, if only we had died when our brothers died before the Lord. Why did you bring all of us into this desert, that we and all our cattle and sheep should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? Oh, it has no grain or figs or grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. Well, they had the pomegranates. They had all of that, didn't they? And they turned their back on it, didn't they? They brought all of that back. But what did they say? Oh, no, we can't go in there. We'll die. So now they're angry. They're angry and they're saying, we have no water. We don't like this manna every day. We've heard that before, haven't we? We have. So once again, Moses and Aaron go before the Lord. How many times have they gone and prayed for those people and for God to forgive them for their attitudes? And they go before the Lord again. And so They went from the assembly to the entrance to the tabernacle, fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord said to Moses, take that staff, you and your brother, from your brother Aaron, you and your brother, take that staff, his staff that budded, and speak to that rock, and before their eyes it will pour out water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so that they and their livestock can drink it. All right, so remember the first time when they had left Egypt and Moses struck the rock, didn't he? And water came forth. But this time, God's saying, no, I don't want you to strike it. I want you to speak to the rock, and it will give them water. And so Moses took the staff from the ark, from the presence of the Lord, just as he commanded him. And he and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, now Moses is angry. Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? And then Moses raised his arm and he struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and everyone and their livestock drank. Okay. But, is that what God said to do? No, God said to do what to the rock? Speak to the rock. Wonder why Moses did that. Well, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring them into the land I am giving to them. Oh, brother, now. Oh, my goodness. What's God saying? He's saying, okay, you've done right by me so far, but now you've disobeyed me. I told you to speak to the rock, and you didn't. You hit the rock not once, but twice. And I think maybe that was bad enough. That was disobeying, wasn't it? And I think maybe Moses just did it because he was so angry with them, and he just hit the rock twice. You know, sometimes when we're angry, it gets away from us. Our anger does. And we lose control of it. And we do things and we say things that we shouldn't be doing and saying, right? And so that's what happened, I think, to Moses and Aaron. But here's what else I think happened. Do you remember when I read it? It said that Moses took the staff and he and Aaron gathered the assembly together, and he said, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water from the rock? Wait a minute. Did Moses and Aaron bring that water from the rock? Was it their power? Was it anything at all that they did? No. It was just because they were following God's commandment, doing it exactly what he said. Only this time they didn't. And later on in scriptures, we're going to read where Moses said that God decided to go ahead and bring that water forth, even though Moses and Aaron had disobeyed. He decided to go ahead and bring the water forth for the Israelites. But it wasn't because they had done the right thing that time, was it? And you know, for all the good and all the wonderful things that Moses did, he's now not going to get to go into the promised land because he disobeyed God. And you know, that happens to us, doesn't it? Sometimes we know we shouldn't do something, right? And we do it anyway. And because we're angry or we don't, I don't know, but we just do it, don't we? And then right after we've done it, we realize what we've done and we just say, oh, I'm sorry. But we still have to pay that price for the sin, don't we? Mom and dad or a teacher or whoever might forgive us for doing the wrong thing. But it doesn't change the fact that we did the wrong thing And it doesn't change the punishment that we receive because we did the wrong thing. And so now their punishment is they're not going to be allowed to go into the promised land because of that. All right, that's sad. All right, so then God says, Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land. That means Aaron's going to die. He will not enter the land I give the Israelites, because both of you went against my command at the waters of Meribah. So get Aaron and his son Eleazar and take them up the Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments, his priestly garments, from him, and put his priestly robe on his son Eleazar. For Aaron will die there on the mountain. So Moses did as the Lord commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of all of the community of Israel, and that's their tents there. So where everyone could see what was happening, they went up the mountaintop. And Moses removed Aaron's high priest garments, and he put them on his son Eleazar, which means from now on, Eleazar is going to be the new high priest. All right? And Aaron died there on top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, and when the whole community learned that Aaron had died, the entire community of Israel cried and mourned for him for 30 days. All right, and then we're going to read one more verse from Numbers 33, which tells us a little bit more about it. It says, they left Kadesh and camped at Mount Hor on the border of Edom. And at the Lord's command, Aaron the priest went up Mount Hor, where he died on the first day of the 5th month of the 40th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt. Aaron was 123 years old when he died on Mount Hor. All right, so they've already been in the desert for 40 years and 5 months when Aaron died. So he was high priest for 40 years when he died. And now we're going to read one more thing that happens to those Israelites. So they traveled from Mount Hor along the route to the Red Sea. But the people grew impatient, and they spoke against God and against Moses and said, why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the desert? All we have is this manna. We detest this miserable food. So God's had enough, and he sends poisonous snakes among them. And those snakes start biting them and killing them. And many of them died. And then the people came to Moses and they said, oh, we're sorry. We were wrong. We sinned when we spoke against you and against the Lord. Please pray to God for us that he'll take these snakes away from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord told Moses, make a snake out of bronze and put it up on a pole. And anyone who is bitten can look up at that bronze snake and they will live. And so Moses made a bronze snake and put it up on a pole. And when anyone was bitten by a snake, they looked at that bronze snake and they lived. You know, Jesus and that bronze snake, there's just a few things in common. One thing is that, let's read John 3. So we're going to go over to what the Apostle John wrote in the New Testament. And this is what he says. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the desert. This is Jesus talking. So the Son of Man, he's talking about himself, must be lifted up on a cross, that everyone who believes in him can have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shouldn't die eternally, but can have everlasting life. So that bronze snake and Jesus, they were both lifted up for everyone to see. The bronze snake was lifted up because God commanded Moses to do it. And Jesus was lifted up on a cross because God commanded Jesus to do that too. And looking at the bronze serpent saved those people from death. And when we look up at the cross and we follow Jesus, we're saved from eternal death, aren't we? From eternal and given eternal salvation. Life forever in heaven with God if we obey. Right? That's interesting, isn't it? Okay. Wow. So it's been 40 years, and that's how long they were supposed to wander. Next week, I think they're going to get to go into that promised land. I think it's time. So stay tuned. Come back with us next week, and let's see if indeed they get to go to the promised land finally. It'll be a new generation, not the old one. I've got two sheets for you. One if you like to color. The other one's a word search. All right, so we'll make sure you can print those out this week if you want to. Hope you're all staying well. We love you. Be good. Be the best you can be this week. Bye-bye.